expect your customers to park who are coming in to look at cars?
Okay, so let's say I have two cars on the side for sale. And let's say two customer cars already that's sitting there waiting. The customers would still have four spots left. Plus, I don't get more than one customer a day.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And I'm by myself. I'm not trying to extend, or I have 3 jobs. Maybe I'm trying to eliminate one of them if I get this license to just.
A concern would be you fill up these spaces with these vehicles, you move up to say 8, 9, 10 cars.
I'm not planning to go.
I understand that. But
if so, then I will eliminate. I cannot go up to 8. My maximum should be 5 because there might be some cars already there for customers to pick up. Plus, I'm not planning on extending to more than 4 cars.
I mean, see the concern. You have your vehicle, you have, right, if you bring one of your own, then you drive.
Yes, my vehicle, yes.
Yes.
My vehicle goes inside.
I understand, but that's where you're planning on putting the showroom, or you?
No. The showroom is I have 2 garages.
Right.
The facility repair, that's where my personal car goes. And the garage next to it that's the one I'm planning on making a showroom.
Where's the lift?
The lift is in that garage is
In the
there.
larger garage?
Yes, the larger.
So you put your car in?
On the right side, and the lift is on the left side.
Okay.
Actually, that garage can take 2 cars next to the lift.
The concern certainly is that when your customers come to look at cars, that they have parking spaces within your area so that they're not impacting
Yes, sir.
street parking or the laundromat parking or parking for other people
Yes.
in that shopping center.
Yes, that's why I'm not going more than 4 cars.
May I ask a question? Thank you. Sir, are there any signs in the overall parking lot which indicate certain spaces are for certain, businesses?
No.
Okay, so is it your understanding right now that anyone who comes into that parking lot can park
Anywhere.
anywhere in the lot?
Yes, sir.
Could park not in your
Of course, yes. And as I said earlier, the reason why I did not mark my spots yet is because this plan is not approved yet. Once the landlord gets the approval, I'm gonna go ahead and mark. I already have the yellow paint and everything ready. I'm just waiting for the approval.
Do you plan on painting anything that would indicate what is customer parking versus spots that you use to park the vehicle?
No.
Would that be a problem to do that?
Because I'm planning on putting the cars for sale next to the wall and keep the ones outside empty. So if a customer coming to buy or coming to return, he can simply park anywhere he wants.
I mean, again, my concern
Yes, sir.
is that you go beyond the number of cars that you're anticipating currently. Okay, and just making sure that there's no impact from your business
On other businesses or the community.
or the community
In general.
including parking on.
Yes, sir. I promise I'm not gonna pass the 4 cars, and I always be within the limits of my property as I've always been from day one.
Your request was 4. You mentioned like a maximum number. Would it be within our purview to create a maximum number of spaces utilized for the sales cars, leaving the remainder
I think you can, I think
for customers and so forth?
Yeah.
And for auto repair customers.
I think there's a minimum that he has to have. If you can make a condition to the special exception that the parking spaces not exceed X And as long as he has the minimum required, he should be okay. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, they do have the property owner has a simplified site plan in, and the simplified site plan is for the entire site. It's not just for the auto repair shop. So the site plan has to show that parking can be accommodated for the uses proposed on the site plan. And right now, the way they have the lot configured and the proposed uses, they do meet the parking, that's the minimum required parking for the site plan.
Because I don't want to step on the planning commission's toes.
Oh, this will go to the planning commission. This is a staff review of simplified site plan.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But in meeting the number of spaces, does that take into account that potentially 4 of those would be for vehicles that would just remain there parked as for sale?
Well, so the way that the parking is calculated is on a square foot basis. So if you have 1,000 square foot of car dealership, you need this many spaces. If you have, 1,000 square foot of pizza or pizza shop, you need this many spaces. And so what we do, we add up the different uses and the number of spaces, and that gives you the minimum required number of spaces that are needed for that lot. And I believe for the auto dealership, and I have to go back and check, I don't have it with me, but for the auto dealership and repair shop, he is actually, I think, over the minimum number of spaces that he needs. So, but I mean, and as Greg has mentioned, you are within your purview to say no more than X number of vehicles to be on the car lot as for sale.
Mr. Atkins,
Yes, sir.
as far as the issue of handicapped access, how's that typically get?
Yeah, so sort of going, but so the handicap access will be addressed during the simplified site plan. Right now, there are a couple issues, not only with his site with the step, but Pizza Bowley, I believe, is redoing the site, that the property owner is redoing the site so that there's a access from the sidewalk on Main Street to the shop, because you need a viable handicap access from the sidewalk to the door. And so all those, the handicap, the signs for the property and the parking spaces will be handled at the site plan stage. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I may ask another question to Mr. Atkins. I think I read here that, the property is zone DB and is within the historic district.
Yes, sir.
So, has the historic district, does an application have to be made to the historic district commission?
No, sir. So this is a historic property as we know it.
Right.
And all the changes that the applicant has proposed, or pardon me, the property owner has proposed so far are cosmetic in nature, painting, restriping of the parking lot. Signs typically don't go to the Historic District Commission. So what he's doing now does not require approval from them. If, let's say, and I'm just throwing it out there, putting up a 3-story addition or whatever it is, that would require him to go, or the property owner to go to the Historic
So
District.
the building is not historically significant in any way.
No, sir.
And any of the, and are we dealing with one building on this entire parking lot that has several different businesses that can be located in there?
We are considering it one building. I think it was built over a couple stages, but it's all connected.
Okay, all right, thank you.
One question that I'm not sure, matter of fact, I know I don't know the answer to is, the applicant has indicated motor vehicle administration requires 10 spots for a dealership. I wasn't able to find anything that said that. I don't know if that's a COMAR regulation. I don't know if it's a statute. I'm just not sure where that comes from yet.
I got a package from the MBA before I know that I have to go through the zoning.
Okay.
And it has a list of requirements. One of them is an office, the 10 parking spots, the repair facility within 5 miles, which I already have. I can't remember exactly what else, but Those are the things I remember.
Okay, I think you might have just answered my question. My concern, I wasn't sure if it was 10 parking spots or 10, sort of a minimum limitation on spots dedicated to vehicles for sale. Because my concern is if the MVA says you have to have at least 10 spots for 10 vehicles for sale, and then we limit that number below the MVA minimum, that might not be proper. But if the MVA's requirement is that there be 10 parking spots, which include customer spots, I think we might be.
I think the NVA are speaking about just the dealership. They're not considering a repair facility, a repair shop. So that they're talking about just a dealership,
Right,
if I'm not mistaken.
right. So that the 10 parking spots
Yes.
are just spots that are available for vehicles. Park.
In general, for people to park and for cars on sale and for people to park.
Does that include the cars that you're working on, the repairs?
No, they don't, they're not talking about that. I don't think they talking about that.
You inquired as to, with MVA, as to how many parking spaces you need if you are
A
conducting.
minimum of 10.
Minimum of 10, if you are operating a dealership,
Yes.
no matter what size dealership.
No, as long you have an office, a repair facility in it, and the parking spots.
How many vehicles can you fit in the two garages combined?
2, 4, 5.
So where do you plan on putting vehicles that you are working on, but not actually working on at that moment? So in other words, I'm sure you have multiple customers who come to you, some of them who leave their vehicle,
Yes.
you're working on another car.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you typically park the vehicles that
So
to be worked on?
So the big garage, when you open the door, on the right hand side, you can fit 2 cars. And then when you cross the lift, you can park another car in front of the lift. So those are 3. Plus the small garage can take 1 car. That's 4.
Right.
So
But one of those spots is for your car.
for my car,
Yes.
let's say my car is in front of the lift, then I got 3 spots inside and 10 outside,
Plus one on the left.
plus 1 on the lift.
Yes.
And you're not working on any vehicles past 5 o'clock?
No,
Okay, so I go at like 9 o'clock to go pick a child up from work,
Mhm.
and there are lights on in the garage and the doors open, if there are people in there working. Is that you or is that,
That's me and people helping me fix the place inside and cleaning up sometimes. Because as I told you, I have 3 jobs. So sometimes I have to go there after I finish work to see what's going on, clean up, get some trash out.
What are your plans for the dealership hours?
Excuse me, sir?
Dealership hours.
The hours, my hours will remain the same.
You had mentioned 8 to 5.
Yeah, I think, I don't know what I have on Google. I think I have 9 to 6 right now. I might change 8 to 5 or 8 to 6.
What about weekends?
The weekends, if I work on the weekends too.
Do you plan to have the dealership open on Saturday and or Sunday?
No, I will, on the weekends, usually if I have cars to be repaired, I try to hurry up and finish them on the weekend. So I'll be working with the door shut.
Are there still blue laws or is that a thing of the past? Where it's,
Yeah.
I didn't know if they were still allowed to.
existed?
It just seems that most car sale places aren't open on Sundays, like the only days that they aren't. Which is kind of odd. I've always wondered why they haven't opened that for 7 days a week too for.
I'm gonna move on to the staff report. We can continue to ask questions of the applicant as things come up, but I'll turn it over to Joe.
Absolutely, thank you. Entering the entire staff report, a lot of we have already talked about, so I may gloss over a few things for you. We know where the property is located is downtown business, as you mentioned before. On page 3, you have a diagram showing the layout of the lot, and we discussed that before. They do have a simplified site plan and again, we're not moving forward with the site plan until this use is either approved or denied because things would change either way if you approve it or deny it for the simplified site plan. But there is a pizza bowling place, the auto ER, the smoke shop, and then the hyphen part between pizza bowling and auto ER is proposed as a packaging mailing shop, store. Going on to, let's see, page 4, it goes over the exception, the criteria for a special exception. And again, the board may consider whether the appeal or petition would adversely affect public health, safety, security, morals, general welfare. The petitioner is requesting to operate an auto sales special exception use at the property which is owned DB. The petitioner has addressed 164 through 169 in his pre-hearing statement, which is Exhibit 2. Just to briefly go over the 14 or 15 requirements of that section. The petitioner said there would only be one employee. We talked about that for a little bit of time tonight. The order approved. The zoning administration notes that the property is on East Main, not West Main, as the petitioner indicated. Just a typographical error. Amy's Laundry has just redeveloped with an addition which is across the street. Pardon me. Traffic conditions and facilities. The zoning administration notes that the Main Street is classified as a minor arterial. We did dig into a little bit for trip generation just to give a comparison. The International Traffic Engineer in the 11th edition, and again, this is just for comparison. So a auto repair shop is 3.11 trips per 1,000 square feet, and then used cars is 3.75 trips per 1,000 square feet. So they're very similar in nature. Just to give you uses that are permitted that could go into this area, a coffee shop without a drive-through, the trips per 1,000 square feet jumps up to 33 trips per 1,000. So you can see in comparison, both the used cars and the auto repair are small. If you get into general retail, the trips per 1,000 jumps up. It's about 7 trips per 1,000 square feet. So just pointing out that the used cars and the auto repair center, they have similar trips per 1,000 square feet. So that sort of helps address condition number 3. Turning the page over to page 6. Let's see, and we talked about the previous uses. Let's see. The applicant is going through a simplified site plan. Following the previous approval of the building permits, the auto repair shop operated by the petitioner was allowed to locate. As long as he doesn't change or enlarge the shop. The property values number 5. Zoning administration is unaware of any economic or market valuation by auto sales that will alter property values. The applicant addressed effects of noise, dust, odor, fumes, vibration, glare, and noise. We talked about the hours of operation, or we talked about the hours of operation. Flipping over to page 7. The zoning administration notes that the surrounding area consists of a mixed use, including commercial, office, and residential. Staff believes that the auto sales would have less of an impact on the neighborhood than the auto repair shop or any of the other uses that are permitted by right in that zone. And the coffee shop would have been, sort of the extreme of the examples. Number 8, zoning administration did not complete a research of any court decision. Let's see. We'll talk about the schools, and the applicant noted that the McDaniels College is about 2 miles away. There's 3 or 4 churches that are in close proximity along with Westminster Cemetery. For the essential facilities, water, sewer, schools, transportation. Again, for transportation, you can use the trip generation. But this will not result in an increase of water and sewer usage. No school children will be added because of auto sales. Again, the applicant addressed number 12 about life safety issues, whether it's auto sales or a donut shop or auto repair. It's all the same for fire, police, and health services. Turning on to page 8, cultural resources. We talked about this. It is within the historic district overlay zone, but it's not listed individually in the CAR report. And the zoning administration is unaware of any cultural or historic landmarks associated with the property. Traffic for facilities for pedestrian sidewalks. There is a sidewalk on Main Street, East Main Street. Let's see, contribution, building we make towards. The zoning administration notes there are no building alterations or additions as part of the special exception request and have no comments on that section. And again, if there were, that would require probably a review by the Historic District Commission. Then turning over to page 9, does not affect the general plan of physical development of the district. We list the goals, 2 sets of goals from the comprehensive plan: support a diversified and stable economic environment, and support the expansion and enhancement of retail, entertainment, and mixed-use development in downtown Westminster. Going to number 2, the zoning administration notes that the auto sales involves primarily display of automobiles for sale and is less intensive than the auto repair shop facility. Going on to page 10. Again, overburden of public services, including water, sewer, public roads, and storm drains. The applicant, or in this case, the property owner, will have a water sewer allocation application that will be required, and also a simplified site plan will be required as well. Let's see. The surrounding area, as I mentioned before, consists of residential, commercial, and office uses. Notes that the surrounding existing uses of a carryout restaurant is a permitted use in the DB zone. The laundromat is a special exception in the DB zone. Let's see. There again, other uses that would have higher trip generation rates than the automobile sales. Going down to number 3 on the bottom of page 10. The zoning administration notes that there is no additional zoning ordinance regulations associated with automobile sales and use, except that an automobile car wash is not permitted. And the applicant has stated that it's not a car wash, it's a repair facility and sales. And again, he would need to attain any approval from the board, attain a necessary water and sewer allocation from the Department of Community Planning and Development, obtain a site plan approval, including the location and number of auto sales spaces on site, and obtain any necessary approvals from the City of Westminster and Carroll County regarding any necessary building permits. And again, you talk about the conclusions later, but that's the staff report, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I have one question, if I may. That is, did anything that the 3 members of the public say this evening change or alter your thoughts about this application in any way? It was primarily directed at traffic.
Yes, sir.
And also there were concerns about, parking spaces in the parking lot.
As far as traffic, I mean, we can forward the comments on to the city administrator and to the chief of police. I don't know if they have other complaints in the area about, and again, I don't live in that part, I don't drive that often, so I don't know. But there may be other complaints from other citizens in that area. But as far as the application, staff doesn't have any concerns as long as the property owner can meet the requirements of the simplified site plan. And again, that's on hold until we determine what happens here.
Sure, okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions of Bill Murphy? Any pros or cons amongst board members? Second discussion.
I think we've already talked a little bit about placing a limit on how many vehicles for sale. Sounds like that could be very reasonable. It doesn't sound as if there's any concern on the applicant's part about placing a limit of 4, something of that sort.
I have a question for Mr. Atkins. If we were to require that the parking spaces be marked, is that something that we can do, or is that something that is addressed by the site?
It can be addressed at the site plan,
Just for instance, only a handicap spot perhaps,
right?
probably at least one.
It'd be addressed at the site plan. I mean, you can inform me that that is a desired thing, and I will move that forward with the site plan.
I think, so you want to close the testimony part of this case, right? You're into deliberations then?
I see if anybody else has any comments.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, I also.
We're just. Trying to put traffic patterns in the back.
Yeah.
Which things, make the alleyway like one way in, but if you make it coming in off Manchester Avenue coming in, people will be coming that way to still not sit at the light. And if you make it going out, they'll have to sit there and they'll block the road, people trying to get out there.
Yeah, so that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
There's none.
The exit Witter Street right there is a pain in the butt. It's been that way since we moved there in
Well,
'84.
that's what I was just gonna say. It seems as if it's more of a traffic issue
Correct.
relevant to people cutting through it all
Mhm.
than it is relevant to the request for
Correct, I mean, I just,
a business.
traffic and, taking a chance of getting hit in there. I back into my driveway because I'm not backing out into the alleyway, take a chance of somebody hitting my vehicle.
Now, will they no longer use her entrance, her parking area now? Cause there was vehicles being parked in her
But I'll
driveway all the
I mean,
time.
I would go next door and say, yeah, they need to move the vehicle and they moved it, so.
Yeah.
There's no complaints with that.
So maybe you put a sign that say private parking, private or whatever.
I think that's beyond
Yeah.
the scope of what we're doing here.
So it's that corner.
I hang the sign in the past, somebody took it off before I have the cameras in.
Like a no parking sign?
Yes, somebody was upset. Took it off.
I think the main thing is that we don't have a traffic study here. We're relying on people's observations, which, is a fair thing to do. But also,
But like I said, I don't wanna stop him from making a living and all that kind of stuff, no. And just safety is what I'm concerned about.
I promise you, I will not be out on my property always. And hopefully everything will be okay.
And with that, we'll close the public hearing, testimony portion of the public hearing. And move into deliberation, so a chance to discuss this.
I mean, my initial impressions are that the dealership is not going to change very much about the use of that particular area. It seemed to me that having a repair shop is gonna cause more noise, more pollution, if you wanna call it that, than having a dealership there, especially if it's limited so that it doesn't impact the neighbors by causing customers to park on the street in somebody else's parking spot. So I think a reasonable limitation is consistent with what the petitioner is requesting would be appropriate. I do think it's important to have marked parking spots, both for the dealership and for the customers, and that's a recommendation we would make to the planning commission, in its review.
Is in painted reserved for, or a sign on the wall, this area reserved for auto.
Correct, and full compliance with handicap rules and regulations as well, both for accessing the property and accessing the building so that the customers can perform their contracting.
Yes, sir, whatever it takes.
I think visually, the only things that stood out to me about this property was when it was a auto body place and there were bumpers everywhere. So all the time, that's the one thing. I don't know how long that went on. But it seemed like
With
years.
Penny,
But yeah, it was unsightly for a while. Those car parts were literally piled around the
I don't think
building.
I'll travel that way too often. I never noticed it.
especially when a big windstorm would come past, you'd find bumpers up the alleyway.
Mr. Atkins, how is signage typically addressed for these types of businesses?
Signage is, they are required to have a permit through the city of Westminster through the Planning Community Development Department. And then any building permits would be issued through Carroll County. They take care of the majority, like electrical and plumbing permits for us. But the signage is based on the store space frontage. So in this zone, I believe it's 2 square feet per linear foot of building frontage. Like the smoke shop would take their space that faces, East Main Street. You know, if it's 10 feet, they'd be allowed 20 square feet of sign. Same thing for Pizza Bowl, same thing for this space.
Would anybody like to take a stab at a motion? One way or the other?
I'll defer to you for the motion that maybe includes the limitations that have been.
Can I bring a information? Since you do have to do findings and conclusions, there's a written decision that's gonna have to be prepared. So I would suggest that the first thing you do before you make a motion is that come to a consensus if you can, that your findings are that the application either meets or does not meet the review criteria, which are also supported by Mr. Atkins, and also the applicant set forth his responses to the review criteria. So that would be the first thing to do, just state what you're
I
finding.
kind of included that in the motion, which ends up being marathon, so I'm all for addressing it.
Yeah, you can do it separately. So you could deal with the findings first, that whether the application meets the special exception review criteria. If it does, then you can determine that whether there are any conditions you want to impose. I think there's a few conditions that are suggested here, and then you talked about signage, and you also talked about
Limited number of cars.
you can
For sale.
you can I think you can set a maximum, but he's got to have as long as he has met the special exception review criteria, I think that as long as he's not violating it in any respect, and I think he can have the amount of cars that are, whether it's for the repair business or whether it's for the sales business, he can have the number of cars that are allotted to his business. You know what I'm saying? So he's got to have the minimum number of parking spaces, and the maximum is going to be whatever spaces are allotted to his business. And I don't know, Mr. Atkins, what do you thoughts about that?
So the simplified site plan would, they don't assign, but they say that each business needs X amount of spaces. So, I heard that the board would like, or is considering, having that lot have assigned spaces, like these 10 spaces belong to this use, these 5 spaces belong to this use, and like that. I will say though, in a shopping center situation, we do the same thing. Your pizza shop requires this many spaces, hair salon requires this many spaces. We do not require them to have assigned, the pizza shop gets these 5 spaces over here and the hair salon gets these 5 spaces over here. It's
As long as the shared parking lot is.
Right.
Of ample size for all
All the spaces, right? So two different thoughts on that one.
Now, is this a shared parking lot or are those spaces legitimately linked solely to his business on his property?
We don't get into leases, we don't know, we're worried about the site. You know, this site needs 35, whatever it is, 35 spaces, there's 35 spaces. How the property owner either allocates them in leases or how he manages his property, that's up to him.
So you want to go through these bullet by bullet? Just do a general discussion.
I think other times we've simply indicated that they'd all be within the limits of those that have been outlined by staff in the report.
You can, you know,
And then we'd add the other two that we discussed, I guess,
well, you can incorporate the staff report into your decision and say that you accept the staff report as the findings of the board. I think, you know, that would be, rather than go through them one by one, you can, if you agree with the staff report in all respects, that would mean just incorporate staff's findings as your findings.
I think in general, we concur with the staff's findings with regards to, again, the number of workers at the facility, the parking conditions, the facility provided for the use that's being requested, and then as far as the impact on city and county provided facilities such as water and sewer and fire and EMS.
Also, if I could help the board out a bit, if you go to page 11 of 11,
that's what I was referring to. I guess about including.
right above the four conditions, I guess, it mentions the sections that needs to be complied with. So, you know, the applicant needs to comply with 16450 of the zoning ordinance, and the applicant needs to, the other one would be 164, 170B of the zoning ordinance, so.
So this is basically a recommendation to the board as
Yes,
to
sir.
how to make its findings and impose the conditions.
Yes, sir.
Section 164-170B of the zoning ordinance states that the applicant for a special exception shall have the burden of proof, which shall include the burden of going forward with the evidence and the burden of persuasion on all questions of fact, which are to be determined by the board. I would move that the applicant has met the burden of proof and persuasion with respect to the application for a special exception. I would move that we incorporate the Exhibit 3 findings of the Plan Commission as the findings of the Board of Zoning Appeals with respect to case number 25-03.
And then you can indicate whether you agree with the four conditions that staff recommended or not. And as far as the other concerns that the board has about disability requirements for disabled persons, you know, as far as getting in and out of the lobby area, and also anything else having to do with signage or space allocation, anything like that in the parking lot. I think can the board defer to the site plan that is being considered the simplified site plan?
I mean, if after the motion is made, if they have recommendations on what they would like to see, yes, we will take that into consideration.
I think the board clearly wants.
Well, my motion was limited really to the burden of proof on the special exception criteria. I think we can vote on that aspect of it, and then we can address the conditions separately, if that's okay. So I just moved that the applicant has met the special exception criteria that is set forth in the board's report on pages 4 through 11. And I would move to incorporate the planning commission's findings and recommendations as those of the board of zoning.
Not the planning commission, but the
The
city planners.
City planners. Yes, thank you.
Motion's been made.
Second?
And it's been made second. Before we vote on that, do we want to add the conditions or do that
I
separately?
think so. I think we can do it all in one fell swoop. If you want to add the conditions, that would be part of the motion.
And what an additional condition then would we add for the limit on the number of vehicles that can be for sale?
Correct. We haven't discussed that though, what that number would be.
I think as long as he's complying, if the special exception is approved and as long as the applicant is complying with the special exception and no violation has been found, that he can sell whatever amount of cars at any given time the special exception would allow. Okay, so to put a specific limit on it, to put a cap on it, I would be a little concerned about that because, you know, we don't want to deprive the applicant of the ability to operate a legal business there. But and he just needs to know that he has to operate within the parameters of what you're approving. If he goes too far, I would assume that someone from enforcement would go out there, one of the inspectors would go out there and check it out and could cite him for a violation if it did occur. So
I promise you won't happen.
yeah.
But as the gentleman said, sometimes I might have, maybe in the future, if the selling goes well, maybe I will eliminate repair and period.
Yeah, well, that's something that remains to be seen.
All right, so motion's been made and seconded with regard to the staff report's findings in support of the staff report's finding.
Correct. And if we're going to add the conditions, I would incorporate also the conditions and restrictions set forth on page 11, numbered 1 through 4. And I would also add that the Board of Zoning Appeals would recommend that the city planners in their review include a review of the site's compliance with handicap rules and regulations to ensure the customers of the business have ready and free access to the business.
Sounds good.
Motion's been
Now, do you
amended.
take one parking space for handicap?
That would be determined.
He just needs to comply with whatever the law is. I don't think that the board here can say, you know, anything other than there must be compliance with
Supposed to comply with Americans
applicable
with
law
Disabilities Act.
Yeah.
on entrance, access and egress into and from the facility, and also if he's required to have a parking spot, you know, that is specifically available for someone with a disability. That is something that the board can simply say, one of the conditions is he must comply with all law relating to handicap access to and from the building and in the parking lot. We're all okay with that?
Yes, sir.
So there's considerations being added.
As well.
All right, so I have a motion on the table regarding the support of the staff report's conclusions and additional considerations. It's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous. Yeah, for the record, I've also labeled the photographs of as exhibit 5, so I'll give this to you.
Good luck with the business.
Good luck so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming out.
And then we need good luck there and we do.
Just to let you know, we did not receive any applications. Today was the deadline for the July meeting. So
You all have.
Oh, so we have it. Thank you.
You have to finish the agenda though. Is there any other business that you
Yes.
want to conduct?
We know July meeting, any other comments from the board members? Motion to adjourn.
We adjourn the June 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
Was in favor?
Aye.
Right.
7:15.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Really helpful too.
Oh, really?
Keep that. I've been hearing a lot about things on this field and things that were so far off the agenda.
I didn't.
Really still.
You signed both minutes.
I have copies. Do you have copies on that?
It's important, you know, it's only one day. Yeah, but on the other hand,
It was all right.
it was the right thing to do. I mean, it was a really exact thing. I didn't know exactly how it originated or who brought it up, but
No.
you know, even one day, someone can complain about it. If they don't like the decision, then they can.
Yeah. Right, so it was the right thing to do, but this was my very first one, so I learned actually quite a bit. It's good thing that date is.
It was good to ask questions.
Yeah. It was a good report, very easy to follow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it's nice to be that way, but they really lay them out and address, in my 5 months of experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was close. Thanks. I'm talking like, you know, got the space.
Yeah, I think as long as he doesn't, he stays within the parameters of what he's been granted, he'll be fine. So,